Welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are having a great weekend. So I want to finish up what the last video was about. We talked a little bit about Star Wars, want to talk a bit about Star Trek, its relation to what what a future economy would probably look like under universal basic income, why it comes up a lot regarding these two franchises. And when we look at something like Star Wars. For reference points, you can go back to my last video I did. It was called The Economics of Star Wars. So I'm going to just kind of pick up there. We talked a lot about what type of government formed the type of economy, the trade agreements that existed in Star Wars. And to just quickly touch on that and kind of finish that up, basically we discussed the type of government was mostly modeled after the Nazi Germany, and that had a lot to do with George Lucas' focus on things that went on there, and we explained a lot in that video. But as we move forward, let's look at the Star Wars economy relational to our own global economy here. So what we have to understand about Star Wars, there were about 50 million planets under the Galactic Empire, right? And at the nucleus of it's close to center, you get to that, like with worlds like Coruscant, which was a world totally just cities. It was just a planet just that was essentially a big city, right? That just went on and on. Life is great there because of technology. You have a lot of robotics, what we refer to as the robotics revolution in relation to universal basic income, which means if you have a lot of robots, if you have a lot of energy, because remember, this is a civilization that is harnessing the power of their stars. They have almost endless energy resources, right? You're going to have basically most of the labor done by robots. As we see in Star Wars, we mostly see robotic servants. We see robotic armies, right? Which what we got in much of the Star Wars, Clone Wars, and so on, right? But there is a sector of the Star Wars galaxy called the Outer Rim, right? And in the outer rim, the problem is as the further you get from the center of the galaxy threshold of the energy and power, the more you start to get to these planets that you don't have all of the robot labor, and that's going to create a market because much like our global economy, what's happening is there are certain resources in certain countries that we don't have in others. In the Star Wars universe, you have certain planetary systems where there are certain metals available that aren't available on other worlds, right? You have certain spices that are available in planets that aren't. So now you can have trade negotiations and trade routes between these planets, right? Now you're creating a market. Hey, I'll give you 100,000 robots for so much of this spice that you have, or this material, this exotic material, whatever it may be, right? But the further you get away from technology, just like in our normal global systems, right, where you go to where we use terms like globalization, where you go to places where you have a lot of underpaid workers, right? Um, that we deem as underpaid workers, which have people who are doing the labor a lot cheaper, right? For many political reasons, global reasons, and people profiting off of them in other places, right? So that creates a market, right? Obviously, and the reason universal basic income comes into Star Wars has a lot to do with the idea of this robotic economy, right? Where the robot's going to create this new wealth. What do you do with this new wealth? Well, more than likely, most people are going at some point are going to end up with these robots, like most people ended up with vehicles, and now transportation wasn't a problem for them, right? So you're going to have that with the robotics in these civilizations. Now that we kind of understand why that would create a kind of perfect situation for universal basic income, minus the outer rim systems. Again, those are those planetary systems that are way outside the empire, right? You're going to have that robot labor, profit. We talk a lot about how to fund universal basic income today, and what we use is a type of robotic tax, a robotic economy, that new wealth from the robots they can impose a robot tax on and pay a lot of these things, right? Now let's move on to Star Trek, right? Now, Star Trek is a lot different. It would be 10, we'll touch a little bit on the type of government it is. We already kind of explained in the last video the government of Star Wars, which was hyper capitalistic. And again, the era made in many of us, our ideas is that these are like some type of communism, some type of socialist type systems, and we're finding out that they're both capitalism. Now, Star Trek we would regard as a post-capitalistic system, right? So a lot of people saying, wait a minute, Star Trek really doesn't need or use money, and that is because Star Trek is even a more great example for universal basic income. It's probably more of a perfect example because they have such an advanced technology with their teleporters and transporters and replicators that they can use these things to create, there's no production really. They can just kind of materialize it with the replicator, which I think is based on teleportation technology. Excuse me. And so this is all very important because what it means is, it means that people are pretty much free to just use a replicator. Now, it is resource limited to a certain extent, right? Much like their energy, that would be the kind of the floor for it. But you have to understand that in Star Trek, it's kind of pulled up the economy so much that to the point they don't really need money. It's almost like a cashless society. Now, you hear things like Federation credits. The thing about Federation credits, my understanding is they are mostly used to negotiate with people outside the Federation. So they have a spot market, right, where to transfer poor goods. It would be like, if we had a resource that you wanted and we traded, simply like how a barter system would work, or how we even described Star Wars a few minutes ago, how these outer rim planets could trade resources with one another, right? Or based on the resource economy that your planet had. But let's get into real quick this teleportation, this replicating technology, right? So it means I can just sit home with a replicator. If I need food, if I need a material, if I need a device, whatever I need, I can just create it with the replicator, right? For the most part. And this is this advanced Star Trek technology. Right now, what do we have in comparison to that? In today's technology, we have 3D printers, right? So there was a time somebody had to have the skills to build certain things, right? To whether it was based on some type of slave labor, or if it was based on some type of feudal system labor, or just how we work today, minus robots coming into the framework, right? But these 3D printers are printing houses, cars, right? So that means if you have one, you can sit home and instead of going out to a store, going anywhere, you just sit home and hit a button and it's going to make that thing for you, right? You do have to have the raw materials to put in, where it's a little bit different with Star Trek. They can just kind of grab the atoms with teleportation technology out of the ether and create them in the, in the vicinity. But with 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 our 3D prints, we do have to have the raw materials. But having the raw materials is going to be probably a lot easier for most people than have to produce and construct it, right? That's something that would require some type of skilled labor. And what that does is that's going to bring the price of these goods down so much so to where you could end up with very, very low price goods, meaning mostly everybody could afford them, or you could end up with zero, it costs zero, right? So as the technology advances, the prices go down. The reason universal basic income comes up a lot because our technology, Chat GPT-4, are advancing so high that the logical conclusion is that they're going to advance to the point they're going to outperform us in work, creativity. There was just the Joe Rogan podcast done all by Chat GPT-4 with people many notable people coming on the show that were all computer generated, all made up, but you wouldn't know the difference unless you were told, right? It's that good a technology, right? A lot of people who watch my channel don't understand the channel, don't understand what I do here, because if they did, if they were aware of what's really happening in our world or what's going to happen, they would take this very seriously and see that this is a problem as high as up there as climate change, nuclear proliferation. The biggest catastrophe and the most important thing you could think of, this is in that top three, what we're talking about here on this channel. And we've created a universal basic income program system to meet these future challenges. We use blockchain technology and so on. You can see it in our links and on our homepage here, bitcoinmyk.com project. And it's very, very important, guys. It's very, very important because this is going to affect most of you all in the future. You know, if you're going to have a job or not, what you're going to do, the strain it's going to put on the government, if the government is going to be able to hold up the weight and support it, what are going to be our personal responsibility to ourselves and our families, how we're going to feed our families. And these are the things people like Joe Rogan are worried about. These are the things Elon Musk are worried about. Whatever you're worried about on this planet right now, I can tell you this, is not going to be as important as this in the next 5 to 10 years. So Star Trek has solved that problem. We haven't, but we're moving into that problem. There's going to be a serious, serious problem. But the reason the Star Trek economy so much works with universal basic income, because if you have almost limited energy, which we are close to that, we have a giant reactor in space called the sun that might last another 5 billion years, that we're getting better with our solar energy that's going to probably power many of these robots, going to power many of our sources of energy. And if it's not that, it's probably going to be some type of nuclear fusion, fission, and so on, right? So these things are going to get us close to that threshold of almost limited energy. Now, what you're going to have to do is find a place for people who have been outpaced in creativity in the job markets and so on. And whether you're an attorney, a doctor, these robots they have robot lawyers now, right? That are technology in the legal profession that's better than lawyers. They have technology that's better than psychologists and psychiatrists. And so there's going to be very little left for human beings to do. That's why projects like I'm working on are so very important, that are going to use technology and AI to create a universal basic income to meet this, and use the robotics to deal with the issue. But to get more information on that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, watch the last video. It's pretty interesting. Tell people about this video so they know how important this is, because a lot of people, you know, we're a species of people who we don't focus on serious things until it's too late, oftentimes, when we're at the precipice of destruction. And that's probably not the most efficient, best way to deal with our problems, right? So what can you do to solve this problem? It's very, very simple. Doesn't cost you a dime. Sign up for bitcoinmyk.com, universal basic income. We can create a social media interface that can rival those of Twitter and Facebook. Turn this new idea of work and technology into a fair economic system that empowers and helps everybody around the world, reduces poverty, reduces crime, stimulates the economy for the better. It's amazing, and it's almost unbelievable that just sign up for a social network can do all of that. But if you subscribe to the channel, watch our content, you'll begin to see how important this is and why videos like this are so important. That's all I want to say in this video. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.